Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how to magnetize a 4x4. So before we get into the actual process, let's talk materials. So of course you're going to need a 4x4. For this tutorial I'm going to be using the WuQue, but this process is obviously going to work with any other 4x4. And of course magnets are essential to this process. There are a bunch of different size magnets. The most common ones are these 4x2 N35s and N50s. For a 4x4, you actually need different magnets for the inner layers compared to the outer layers. And I would actually recommend 3x1.5 N52s or N50s for the inner layers, and 4x2 N35s for the corners. But since these 4x2 magnets are the ones most easily available and most common to find, I'm going to be showing you how to utilize the magnet placement in order to use 4x2 N35s so that they don't feel overly strong. So yeah, N50s, you can use them in the corners, but I personally like weaker outer layers. So I'm going to go with the 4x2 N35s for this process. And you obviously need to keep those magnets in place, so you're going to need some crazy glue or gorilla glue here. And I personally like to use a toothpick. Now this is optional, you can obviously just take the actual bottle and dab the glue onto the magnet, but I just feel like using a toothpick is a cleaner process. You just dip it in the glue, put a little bit on the magnets, and you're not wasting any glue and you're not creating a messy work environment. So that obviously is optional, but I just think it's a little bit neater. And another totally optional material is tape. So with this, I hate disassembling cubes, and 4x4 especially, it's such a pain to assemble. So what I do with the tape is I tape together the centers and corners and edges that I'm not working on, and I take out whatever pieces that I need, and I work on them individually so that I don't have to take everything apart and sort them out and just go through all that hassle. Alright, so getting into the actual process, I always like to start with magnetizing the inner layers. So before I do that, we're going to tape up the centers so that other pieces that I am not working on don't move around. So I'm going to be starting off with the edges on the white face, so just tape up all the centers and then take out the edges on this white face. And I almost forgot to mention this, after you take out the edges out of every face, you want to make sure to tape the corners to the centers so that once it becomes all disassembled and all the edges are taken out, that it doesn't disassemble when it's in this pure 3x3 form. Alright, so now the first face is prepped and we have the first set of edges ready to go. And so with an even layered puzzle, you actually have to double the magnets in the inner layers, because otherwise the polarities get messed up and blah blah blah. So unless you want to know the full details, just know that with the inner layers, you have to double up the magnets so that north and south are facing outwards on each piece. So yeah, all that jargon is really confusing, but I'm just going to show you how to do it. It's very simple. You just take one edge, split it apart, and we're going to align both of these halves so that the inner wings are facing each other, just like that. And now here is where the magnets come in. So just take any random magnets, put them in there. It doesn't matter what polarity they are, it doesn't matter if you know or not, just put them in and they'll attract. And so at this point, this is where you want to kind of make sure that the pieces are nice and lined up, because otherwise if you go on to magnetize any other edges, it's going to be kind of offset and it's not going to be centered very well. So just make sure that they are flat just like that and they meet each other at the line. And this is also where a toothpick comes in handy, so I'd recommend actually getting 2 toothpicks. And so with 4x2 magnets, they're actually pretty strong, and so this is where you want to really take care of where you're placing the magnets. Because 4x2 magnets are so strong and you're also doubling up in the inner layers, you want to put it so that the magnets are fairly close to the core. So that means is just put it so that they're further in, and this will make it so that the magnets feel a little bit weaker. They're not going to be overbearing or going to obstruct your turning a lot. So you can't really see the magnet placement super well, but all I've done is just pushed it into the furthest that it could go. So just be sure to do that and it should be good. So now is where we want to dab a little bit of glue in order to secure the magnets. And so here is what I like to do. I just like to take the nozzle off of this super glue and then take the toothpick and dab it into the bottle. With this way, I'm just getting just enough amount of glue so that I'm not wasting any glue, and it's just a neater process. So just take this dab of glue and put it onto the magnet. And you're just really spreading it around so that it meets the edges of the magnet where the plastic and magnet meet. So yeah, just be sure to cover enough of the area in which they are touching so it doesn't become dislodged if you drop it or something like that. Yeah, and just really be sure to get it all around it, but not wasting too much glue. And that should be good. I don't really have a certain way to gauge how much glue I'm putting in. I just make sure that it seems like the glue is covering all of the touch and the contact areas where the magnet touches the piece. And at this point, I just want to make sure that the edges are still aligned well and they meet at a flat surface. And then just double check the placement of the other half of the magnet and then glue it in. And there you go, this is our first pair of magnetized edges, and this is going to be your guide for the rest of the edges of this cube. So all you're going to be doing is continuing this process. Take an edge, take it apart, and use either of these halves as a guide for the magnet placement of the new edge. So just take any magnet, it doesn't matter what the polarity is, drop it in there, and it'll match. The polarities will be correct if you do this process throughout the entire cube. So again, make sure that these surfaces are flush and they meet at a good point. Push that magnet as far in as you can, dab a glue, and you are good to go. So that is the process for the rest of the edges. Just go ahead and do that, and then we'll get onto the corners next. Alright, so once you're done with magnetizing all your edges, all that's left to do are magnetizing the corners. And so with the corners, it's really just magnetizing a 3x3, but it's a little bit different. And so if you have these edges, you kind of just want to choose a side that you want to use in order to magnetize the 3x3 stage. And so what I mean by that is you either choose the right edge or the left edge, and you have to keep that same edge in use when you're magnetizing the edges. And so if I were to take this one, you have to take other edges where the wing goes to the left, and not this wing where it kind of goes over to the right. So I'm just going to go ahead, take this side of the edge, and we're going to use this in order to magnetize the corners. And so let's go ahead and disassemble this here. And so we'll start off with one here first. And so just match it up here. We'll take any two magnets. Again, polarity does not matter, just take any two magnets and drop them in there so that they attract. And again, just align it so that the pieces are flush and there's nothing sticking out, so that they're just flat like that. And with the 3x3 stage, it's a little bit more lenient in terms of the magnet placement. And so if you want something a little bit more noticeable in terms of the magnet feel, if you want something a little bit more bumpy, then align the magnets so that they're closer to the outer edge. If you want something less noticeable but you still want the stability, then push it in a little bit more. For me personally, I like it sort of in the middle, so I'm just gonna do it right where this base is, the base of this hole right here. So just about there. Dab a little bit of glue to secure the magnets in there. And there you have it, the first pair for the outer layers. And so same deal with magnetizing the edges. Use this first pair as a guide to arrange the polarities for the rest of the outer layer pieces. And so I'm I'm just going to take this, set it to the side, and get started on my next pair. And so again, to reiterate, with the edges, you want to make sure that you're choosing the same one that as you were using before. And so I used the one with the wing going to the left, and I'm just going to use that same one in order to magnetize the rest of these corners and set the other half to the side. And here we go, same deal. Take the edge and take the corner that you just magnetized and put it next to each other. Another magnet, again, doesn't matter what the polarity is, and just drop it in there and the polarities will be the same. And same thing with the edge, just take it, align it with the corner that has not yet been magnetized, line it up, and drop in a magnet. It does not matter what the polarity is, it will be the same throughout if you do this process the same exact way. And so this is basically the last step in magnetizing your 4x4, so get all those corners done and you'll have a magnetic 4x4 ready to go. Alright, so once you are done magnetizing all the corners and edges, the hardest part is probably just waiting for the glue to cure. And so I'd recommend waiting overnight, and I actually waited just about 4 or so hours, and I was really impatient and just put the puzzle back together. And it's fine, at least for the brand of glue that I used, but sometimes it will result in those few white marks here and there, but those will just rub off. But if you want to make sure that there won't be any cosmetic damage to the pieces, then just be a little bit more patient than I was. Wait overnight, wait a couple more hours if you can, and then your magnetic 4x4 will be good and ready to go. And so here is your finished magnetic WuQue. I went ahead and tensioned it, and I've put a few drops of cosmic lube in here, and it is amazing. I absolutely love it. And so the actual feeling of the magnets in here, 4x2 N35s are probably the strongest that you'd be able to put in the inner layers, just because they are relatively strong. You want to make sure to push them further in, closer to the core, so that it's not overbearing and it's not gonna obstruct the turning. And so since we did push it in the furthest that we could, the magnetic feeling is very nice. It is noticeable, but it's not obstructing the turning at all, and it's not making it hard to turn the puzzle. It still flows really well. And so as for the outer layers, I do like relatively weaker outer layers, so that 3x3 stage is a little bit easier to do, and the outer layers aren't gonna drag the inner layer along with it. And so I think that putting the magnets in the corners where it did a really good job. You can still feel the magnets in here, and it does do a really good job at just stabilizing the puzzle. But it's not obstructing the turning at all. You can just see it flows very well for the 3x3 stage. And so I think this puzzle turned out really well. The magnets obviously do help in the controllability and stability aspects, and despite the magnets being there, it doesn't obstruct the turning and it still flows really well. But I do have a cosmic magnetic WuQue that I absolutely love, and so what I think I'm gonna do with this magnetic WuQue, I'll just give it away to you guys. And so how to enter the giveaway, like this video and check out the Gleam link below to see other ways to earn entries. And it will be an international giveaway, so good luck to those of you guys that are participating. But I hope you guys did find this tutorial helpful. If you have any lingering questions, maybe regarding which magnets to use, maybe about the magnetic placement, anything at all, feel free to leave a comment down below or DM me on Instagram. But I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.